Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. I do not believe I have ever covered a case where so much has been locked out of what we know, with a huge amount of evidence just unknown as we head into the Kouri Richins trial. So much of it is sealed, so much of it is cryptic. In some cases, it's hard to even tell whether key evidence is coming in or staying out. So, this level of secrecy and uncertainty is very rare, and it creates a suspense that you would not normally see in a murder case at this stage. That's why I am absolutely convinced that the Kouri Richins trial is going to absolutely explode once it begins. Tonight, we're going to talk about why and about what we know versus what we still don't know. And I want to start with what we know, what the prosecution says happened in this case, because if this is all there is, it's already a huge, huge case. These allegations are already very shocking. Here's what they say happened. On March 4th, 2022, Kouri Richins called 911. When paramedics rushed to her home, they found Kouri's husband, Eric, dead. An autopsy discovered that he had 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. 5 times. This was not just a minor overdose. This was a massive overdose of a drug that has already made a name for itself as being very deadly and dangerous. So, why poison's husband? That's already a big headline. But this case moved to the next level because Kouri wrote a book about a children's book about helping her children deal with the grief of losing their father. So, the irony of that she would write a book about helping them get over the loss of their father when she killed the father. That's what the allegations are. The irony, that was not lost on people, and the case went internationally viral. Prosecutors also say that this was not the first time that Kouri Richins had tried to poison Eric. Eric had told family members that Kouri tried to poison him on at least 2 other occasions, and even fed him a poisoned sandwich on Valentine's Day just weeks before he died. But is the jury going to hear about that attempt on Eric's life? It's going to depend on how the trial shakes out. Prosecutors say Kouri had a lover on the side and an increasingly desperate financial situation. They say she bought fentanyl and slipped it to Eric on the evening of March 3rd. Possibly, not definitely, in a mixed drink she made for him called a Moscow Mule. Her plan, the prosecutors say, was to inherit his money and to collect life insurance proceeds, and then she would use that money to pay off all her debts. Kouri is charged with numerous crimes related to these financial things, but the court has ordered most of them split off from the case. Prosecutors say she forged her husband's signature to get life insurance policies for him, and the jury is going to hear about that. But the state also has charged her with things like mortgage fraud for homes she was trying to flip and money laundering. The judge split those off. A different jury is going to take those charges up at a later time. But for Kouri Richins, what that means is that this case is not a one and done. Even if she wins, she is still facing serious felony charges that could lead to a very lengthy prison sentence. So I'm now going to get into the evidence we don't know yet. Would you please hit that like button to let YouTube know we're here, we're broadcasting. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. We'd love to have you back for more. So that case that I've described to you, that's already a very wild, very dramatic case. It already made headlines, but there is so much more. I am convinced that what we are seeing is the tip of the iceberg, that we don't even know the half of it yet. And I base that on the skirmishes we've been able to see in the motions that have been filed. This case has been locked down tight. We have gotten little hints, little ideas of what might be coming, but there is so much evidence we have only small little ideas about. All of these are clearly important. We know that because the two sides are fighting pitched battles over whether the jury is going to get to see this evidence. But what exactly the evidence is still a mystery. So I'm going to give you 3 examples of the kind of evidence where we can tell there's something there, but we don't really know what it is yet. The first one is shocking. Believe it or not, prosecutors say there is a diary where Kouri Richins actually wrote out a timeline of the night that Eric died. We don't know what it says, but the defense is fighting like crazy to keep it out. And that obviously tells you something pretty important. Apparently, when law enforcement executed a search warrant of Kouri's home, they found an orange notebook. Basically, the state says this is a journal, it's a diary where Kouri wrote in her own handwriting. And prosecutors say the first 5 pages of this orange notebook are Kouri's timeline, her description of exactly what happened the night that Eric died. Now, Kouri does not want the jury to see this. She has fought that very hard. Her lawyers told the court, well, you can't really tell who wrote it. It's not clear when it was written. I'm going to be dropping a video on that orange notebook, hopefully next week. Suffice to say, so far, Kouri is losing the battle. And it looks like we are going to see the 5 pages of her journal where she wrote out what happened. There's another big mystery about the evidence that we're going to find out about, and that is what we are going to hear from Kouri's mom, Lisa Darden. Now, shockingly, she is slated to testify for the state, even though she's Kouri's mom. It's pretty clear, though, that she is not a friendly witness for the state. Kouri's lawyers even asked the state to appoint a court-appointed lawyer for her. And probably, my guess is, they believed she might need to take the Fifth Amendment or refuse to testify based on the Fifth Amendment. So the entire argument went back into chambers. What that means is the judge heard it. It wasn't made public. All we know is that when they came out, the judge said, well, okay, no longer a need to rule on that. Why? We don't know. In a 2023 search warrant, a detective, Jeff O'Driscoll, told a court that he wanted a search warrant for Lisa's phone and that she might have been involved in Eric's death. Here's what he told the court. In reviewing forensic downloads of Kouri Richins' phone, it is clear she is very close with her mother and communicates with her almost daily, both for personal matters and in her business dealings. Conversations have been found on Kouri's phone showing disdain for Eric on Lisa's part. Based on Lisa Darden's proximity to her partner's suspicious overdose death, that's a whole other rabbit trail, and her relationship with Kouri, it is possible she was involved in planning and orchestrating Eric's death. Now, it seems that the state may have backed off this theory. This was something that was said in this search warrant back in 2023, but it's now been 2 years. The state is bringing her to testify. The state has never charged Lisa Darden with anything related to the death of Eric. So my guess is that they no longer believe that she was involved, or at least they don't think they have evidence of it. But what would she say that would be valuable to the state? They want her as a witness. So that we're going to find out about at trial. So let me tell you the third mystery. And this has been cloaked in utter secrecy. I'm going to tell you the little bit we know. About 2 months ago, back in November, both sides asked the court to release a 2024 interview of AR, or just the initials AR. Now, the point of releasing it was so that a court reporter could listen to it and type up a transcript. So who's AR? We don't know. But since the request was made in this case, it apparently has something to do with this case. And since the person was interviewed at the children's justice system, it seems pretty likely it was a juvenile. With the initials AR, is this one of the children? Is this a Richins child? What do they have to say? The motion says this person is a witness. That's what it calls them. But we get zilch in the way of details about what they know or why they're being interviewed. It doesn't even sound like the prosecution interviewed them. It sounds like they were interviewed independently. So I am convinced from these, and there must be a dozen more, that we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. It's an incredibly dramatic case, and we don't even know the facts yet. We've only known just a very few of them. With the level of secrecy we have seen so far, I am just convinced there's a lot of that iceberg that's under the water. And it's one of the reasons I am convinced this case is going to be a public sensation. Now, the third reason that I think this is going to be such a very followed public case, publicly speaking, is Kouri Richins herself, because Kouri Richins is her own worst enemy. One of the most fascinating parts of the case is the way that pretty much all the worst evidence in the case has come from Kouri Richins herself. She may not have said, she may not have confessed, she may not be saying things out loud to hurt herself, but she's writing them down. You've already heard about the orange notebook, but probably the most sensational piece of evidence is the now infamous walk the dog letter that Kouri wrote while she was in jail. It's several handwritten pages, and at the top of the first page, it says in big letters, walk the dog. The letter seems to outline exactly how Kouri's brother should testify at trial. The prosecution says, that's trying to get somebody to lie for you. And the two sides have had numerous battles over this letter. Was it in an envelope addressed to an attorney or just loose in her cell? Was it attorney-client privileged? Can the state use it at trial? But Kouri pretty much resolved that issue by telling her family that this was a draft of a novel she was writing, a novel clearly based on her own life, because it seemed to have a lot to do with this exact case. So Kouri's writings are going to be incredibly important evidence, and it appears most of them are going to come into evidence. It's going to put a lot of pressure on her to take the stand to try to explain these, but if she takes the stand, it will be an unmitigated disaster. It's a Hobson's choice for the defense. There's nothing they can pick that will be right. So the fourth reason I think this is going to be so dramatic is, I'll call this the turncoat witness. This case has had more twists and turns than any dozen cases that all put together that we've covered. One of the most dramatic is the turncoat witness, because it appears that the state has lost one of its most important witnesses right before trial. To prove, and let me give you the history of this. So Kouri Richins supposedly poisoned her husband. To prove that, the state wants to show that she had access to fentanyl, because that's what they found in Eric's system. Now, it looked like the state had this all locked down. Kouri Richins bought and flipped houses, and she had a housekeeper who took care of cleaning some of the properties, even her own house. This woman, whose name is Carmen Lauber, testified that Kouri asked her to purchase some fentanyl. And according to Carmen, Kouri went even further. When the first batch wasn't strong enough, apparently, she asked for, quote, some of the Michael Jackson stuff. That presumably meant the kind that killed Michael Jackson. Now, Carmen's testimony is good, but the state put a lot of pressure on her to get her to testify against Kouri. That gives the defense a lot to talk about. They can argue that Carmen is making all of this up to get out of her own legal troubles because promises were made to her. So the prosecution really wants to back up Carmen's testimony. It's that important. One thing they did, they looked at cell phone data. Carmen says she bought the drugs from a dealer named Robert Crozier, and that she bought it at a gas station. So the state trapped her cell phone to prove that she really did go to the gas station. So it's possible she really made the deal there, just like she said. So that's good physical evidence to corroborate that she was at least there. But the testimony really clicked when the state got the testimony of Robert Crozier. Law enforcement interviewed Crozier, who supposedly sold it to Carmen Lauber. Remember, he was arrested on other charges. They interviewed him in jail, and he admitted selling fentanyl to Carmen, who, of course, said she sold it to Kouri. But a few weeks ago, Crozier took it back. He says he was under the influence when he gave his first statement, and that he didn't sell fentanyl at all at the time he met up with Carmen Lauber. He didn't do that until much later. When he met at the gas station, all he was selling was opioids, not fentanyl. And so he wouldn't have had any to sell her. He wouldn't have even been possible. So since Eric didn't die of what he was selling, that means his evidence no longer helps the state. Having a witness switch to the defense is virtually unheard of. Now, witnesses might switch to the state side. That's a possibility if the state offers them a deal, right, on other charges. But as far as we know, Kouri Richins has nothing to offer Robert Crozier. She's in jail. She's not independently wealthy. So his switching sides in a way that hurts him because it means he can't possibly get a deal from the state, that makes his switch very believable. He has every incentive to testify for the state because maybe he'll get something out of it, but he has pretty much no reason to testify for Kouri's side. So that could be a very huge impact at trial. If the state can't show that Kouri Richins got fentanyl, that leaves a very big gap in the state's case. Because of that pressure put on her, Carmen Lauber is not a great witness, and Robert Crozier now has switched to the defense side. So the state may have a workaround, though. William Hayden Jeffs was a handyman who did work for Kouri Richins. Jeffs died in a motorcycle accident in 2024, but not before he talked to police about Kouri's case. He told police Kouri asked him to buy fentanyl and propofol for him. Now, Jeffs is obviously not going to be able to testify at trial, but police seized his phone as part of a different investigation, and they say that text messages on the phone show Kouri was trying to buy fentanyl and propofol from Jeffs. This whole fentanyl story has become its own dramatic roller coaster ride. There is absolutely no telling how this is going to shake out at trial. It is very dramatic, and this is all at the last minute. So the fifth reason I think this case is going to be so dramatic and so followed is that the drama in this case, and I'm talking about outside of the facts directly related to whether or not Kouri Richins murdered Eric, the drama in this case has been unparalleled. That entire trial drama, unbelievable. I'm going to give you 3 examples here too. Now, 2 weeks ago, Kouri's lawyers filed a motion to compel the state to turn over any communications like emails or text messages that they had with potential witnesses in the case. Kouri says the state has been intimidating witnesses, threatening to arrest them if they won't come in for private meetings with the state's lawyers. Now, that would be bizarre because witnesses don't have a legal responsibility to come in and meet privately with the state before they testify. But it gets worse. Here is a statement from the brief. Detective O'Driscoll responded by threatening to get a warrant for her arrest and to bring a pole for her dog if she did not come in for an interview. He also threatened witness 1 with jailing her. This is blatant witness intimidation. Now, the defense said it had proof, and it attached text messages that it said the state investigators had sent to 2 different witnesses. In other words, state had done this twice, not just once. But no sooner had the defense filed this and were these text messages in the court record than the state moved to put them under seal, and they got removed from the court record. So the state also put its response under seal. We do not yet know what the court has said on this. At least as of the last I checked the record this morning, no ruling from the court. Now, the second example of how dramatic these events have been has to do with that Walt the dog letter, which in and of itself was a crazy event. So it was the catalyst for a host of changes in Kouri's team. Kouri's team initially filed motions saying that this had been inside an envelope marked for Kouri's attorney. Now, if that's the case, then the jail officials really should not have been going into an envelope marked for an attorney. That was client privileged. But this was, according to Kouri's own words, part of a novel she was writing. Well, then that muddies the waters because a novel is not attorney-client privileged. It's not a communication between the client and the attorney. So it should not have been in the envelope. So at that time, Kouri was represented by Sky Lazaro, an A-list private lawyer, would have been expensive, who was representing her. You know, shortly after this whole debacle with the Walt the dog letter, Sky Lazaro's firm asked to withdraw from the case. It was never clear exactly why they wanted out. Those documents were not made public. They they usually are not across the country. That would be normal. It could just be that Kouri ran out of money and could no longer pay a private attorney. It could be that they didn't agree. Sky Lazaro and Kouri didn't agree on how to move forward with the case, how to argue it. But regardless, the judge said, okay, he let the law firm out of the case, and then public defenders were appointed to represent Kouri. But, and here's the third thing, not before there was a last dramatic showdown between the prosecution and Kouri's first lawyers. One of Kouri's lawyers filed a motion to disqualify the entire prosecution team. Now, the Summit County Attorney's Office put out a press release saying that this motion had been filed by someone from the firm just 3 hours before they began, quote, systematically withdrawing from representing Kouri Richins. And also, quote, that motion is materially inaccurate and was filed in bad faith, close quote. So this is one of those cases where we are walking into trial knowing just enough to see how incredibly dramatic this trial is going to be. And we know just little enough that anything could happen once the evidence starts getting unveiled and starts coming in at court. There is so much still up in the air. And that uncertainty is what is going to make this trial so dramatic. And it's why, in my view, it is going to be one of the biggest trials of 2026. So please hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribed because you do not want to miss when coverage starts. And let's take a few questions. And just to let everybody know, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off before we start our coverage. So this will be our last live stream for a couple of weeks, but we'll be back. All right. So if you have questions, if you would please put them like question marks at the beginning, and then I'll be able to spot them in the chat. Okay. So looking for question marks at the beginning. I am so excited about this case because I think it's going to be an amazing one to cover. I really don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know. It's one of those. Oh, thank you, Pascaline. Lovely mods in blue. Great idea. I can't believe this trial will take place. I can't either. This is one of those where it just keeps going. This is a Murdoch level trial, in my opinion. That it is that deep, that nuanced, unbelievable. Okay. And let's see. Looking for, oh, here we go. No, that's just, okay. I think we're good. Oh, who would be the ideal juror for Kouri Richins? Asked Mandy May. Great question. And you know that is definitely being bandied about by both sides as they get this. We know that twice Kouri Richins' team has asked to move the trial out of the county, and twice the judges said no. The first time the prosecution was in on it too, but this time around they were not. The reason is that she believes it's going to be very difficult to get jurors who do not know about the case. So what does she want in a juror? I think she would like a juror who knows absolutely nothing about the case, has never heard about it. She would like somebody probably who has been divorced or had marital troubles and understands about that. Maybe someone who's been in solo, who's been a business owner and has some experience with that. I think those kinds of things would be important for her. I imagine she's going to want more men on the jury, but I'm not sure. That's one I would have to think through. That's always a big question that lawyers ask when they're picking a jury. The trial channel is asking about, is there an estimated length? Yes, that the estimated length is 5 weeks. Very, very long trial. All right. And Haas Lover Gal asked, what do you think about her forging Eric's signature on a life insurance policy? Was that ever proven? Well, I think I would have to answer it this way, that it's not proven yet because nothing's come into evidence yet. The prosecution says it has proof, but we don't know what that is. We do know that they believe that there's evidence, and some of that is going to come in this trial because to the extent she forged to get life insurance, that might be connected to the alleged murders. But what it isn't connected, and what isn't connected is just generic mortgage fraud. That's what the judge split out and said, we're going to try that separately. Those are also felonies, also big problems for Kouri Richins, but they are not going to be in this trial. So just a couple of I think 3 total financial crimes will be in this particular case. Pascaline wants to know, what if the public defense asks for a new delay? Well, they might, but I don't think they're going to get it. The judge has been very serious about it. This has been pending a long time. It's been put off more than once. And he said, we're going to trial. It's one of the reasons that he didn't want to accept the defense argument that they needed to move to another county. If they moved now, that would clearly delay trial. They can't get enough jurors in fast enough. They can't get it physically arranged to happen that fast. So the judge, no, we are moving forward in this county and we are getting this over with. Not obviously something that Kouri Richins team wants to do. They're trying to get a delay on this. Carmina asks, will it be the same judge for the financial crimes? Carmina, I don't know that for sure. Really interesting question. I think the answer is yes, but I don't know. All right. Well, I think we've got it. All right. Well, I will look forward to seeing y'all. I'm going to be dropping at least 1 or 2 videos over the next couple of weeks. So be sure to look for that. Hit the like button and subscribe. I want to say shout out to our first 5 tonight: Nano, Desert Rose, Betsy Sue, Neuropsych, Xena, Jenny's Wonderland. And good luck to Michael, who is going through chemotherapy. We're also going to say a shout out for all of our folks here who are going through tough things. To Maureen, for example, who had hip surgery. All right. Well, I will see y'all in the next video.